Hello, and welcome to Kensington Security Consulting, where we bring education to national security. This is Mark Silinsky. In our third video cast, we're going to take a look at the founder of Hamas, Sheik Yassin, and examine the current controversy over capital punishment in Israel. Both are explored in my upcoming book, Cauldron of Terror, Hamas, Israel, and the World. So, who is Ahmed Yassin, and why is he so important to understand the origins and development and current status of Hamas? Well, he certainly is very important. He had a very difficult but certainly accomplished life, though some of these accomplishments were reviled by Israelis, which is why the IDF killed him. Now, in some ways, he was a very unconventional leader who overcame challenges. First, he was a quadriplegic. He claimed that when he was performing handstands on a beach in Gaza as a small boy, he snapped his neck. In any case, it certainly bound him to a wheelchair for the rest of his life. He was forced to rely on his intellect, which he did. Always studious, he studied English at Cairo University, and he later became a very popular and sought-after teacher in Gaza. He found a home in the Islamic Brotherhood. Now, we've discussed this at length at some of our podcasts and in Cauldron of Terror. The brothers led a broad-based effort to return Muslims to the principles of Islam's first generation of leaders. In the 1960s, he led the Gaza branch of the Brotherhood. At the time, Gaza was part of Egypt, which clamped down on the brothers' recruitment and social agitation. Egypt imprisoned Yassin for a few months in 1965, hoping it would cool him down. Well, it didn't. He continued to agitate till the last day of his life. A few years later, Yassin's Brotherhood began to build influence by organizing and funding schools and medical clinics. This is a hallmark of the brothers. He used this to call Muslims to Islam. Then he called his associates to violence. As future Hamas leader Khalid Mashal recounts, quote, "In 1983, we carried out our first military experience under the leadership of Sheikh Ahmed Yassin. The 1983 organization sought to gather weapons to prepare groups for military training and launch the Jihad Project," unquote. Yassin himself has been tied directly to terrorism. He was arrested in 1984, and he told Israeli authorities that he founded an organization intent, in his words, on fighting non-religious Palestinian factions in the territories and carrying out jihad operations against Israel. He was released in 1985 in a prisoner exchange, and Yassin hatched in 1989 another plan to kidnap and murder Israeli soldiers and negotiate the exchange of their bodies for the release of Hamas prisoners. Yassin was arrested again after the abduction and murder of Israeli soldiers and was sentenced to 2 life terms for his role in these killings. But once again, he was released from prison, this time in 1997, as a part of a deal with Jordan's King Hussein, following a disastrously botched attempt by Mossad to assassinate Khaled Marshall in Jordan. Palestinian security forces placed Yassin under house arrest several times between 1998 and 2000 in an effort to curb Hamas's efforts to undermine the peace process. Now, since then, Yassin played an increasingly active role in coordinating and financing Hamas's attacks. In a well-known March 2000 case, Yassin is also directly linked to one documented case of operational crossover between Hamas and Al-Qaeda. A Hamas activist receiving religious instruction in Pakistan was recruited in February 1998, for military training in Al Qaeda's camps in Afghanistan. So, what was he like, this guy? Well, he is a martyr and an inspirational figure to many Palestinians and other Muslims. An Israeli security officer interrogated him for over 12 years now and again. This Israeli was struck by his saintly status. Those were his words. His followers obeyed his orders immediately and unquestioningly. For both his admirers and his enemies, Yassin's cut a respectable figure. Right. So, what's the bottom line on this man? Very important. And a man I think we should all know. Yassin brought Hamas from obscurity to prominence after splitting from Yasser Arafat in 1994, when Arafat received the Nobel Prize. Yassin demanded that all Israeli land be surrendered to Palestinians and ordered a wave of suicide bombings. In response, Israel decided to eliminate him. In March 2004, a drone spotted him being wheeled to prayer and targeted him with an invisible laser. Helicopters launched 3 Hellfire missiles, one of which hit him directly, killing him and 9 others. Many Palestinians idolized him, while Israeli authorities wondered whether or not they created a martyr inadvertently and a new generation of Palestinians who would follow him. Well, I'd like to shift our attention now and let's go to capital punishment. Okay. For those who have followed this controversy, you may have assumed, as I did, that there was no capital punishment in Israel, except for Adolf Eichmann. In practice, this is the case, but really not in law. Execution was on the books for murder until 1954. Then it became abolished for ordinary murders. But it remained an option for mass murder in the time of war or against humanity. Judges rarely imposed the death sentences, and when they did, those sentences really were all commuted to life imprisonment. Okay, but then Hamas would kidnap Israelis and hold them for prisoner exchanges, as they did with Yassin. We just talked about that. After October 2023, many Israelis began to view these exchanges less favorably, and some demanded the reinstatement of the death penalty. A successful push began to pass a law reestablishing the death penalty for those convicted by Israeli military and criminal courts. The bill states its purpose. Here it is: to establish the death penalty for terrorists who carried out murderous terrorist attacks as part of the fight against terrorism, unquote. It further states that a person who intentionally causes the death of another with the aim of harming a citizen or resident of Israel, with the intent of rejecting the state of Israel, well, his sentence shall be death or life imprisonment. And only one of these penalties. Well, just that's it. Either you die or you have life in prison. In the United States, we have pretty much the same thing in some states. Well, predictably, in Israel, this bill drew both praise and scorn. The main objection to the bill is that it's racist. Yeah. Opponents argue that it's unethical, unconstitutional, discriminatory. It favors Jewish Israelis over Palestinians. Now, this is a no-nonsense law that mandates the death penalty in many cases, but only if the court determines that there are special reasons. Now, it can commute the death sentence to life in certain circumstances. Beyond the charge of racism, many Israelis just oppose the death penalties. Many Europeans, many Americans, many people around the world just think their societies have outgrown it, that it's barbaric and immoral. All right. They believe, in this case of Israel, that Israel is too moral for it. Israelis also remembered the first execution took the life of an innocent man. In 1948, Meyer Tobiansky, an army officer, was falsely accused of espionage and executed for treason. He was innocent, they found out. He was posthumously exonerated. The second execution occurred in 1962 when Israel executed Adolf Eichmann. Few mourned his death. Israel's security minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, the main driver behind the bill, had some fun with it. He declared that he dreamed of hanging terrorists and that he was, brace yourself, dying to see the bill passed. All right, I don't think it's very funny either. Get it? Well, an Arab Knesset member, Ahmed Tibi, shouted that Ben-Gvir needs a psychiatrist immediately, adding, quote, "Usually people wish for a better future and love with a birthday cake, but these people sanctify hatred and death," unquote. Well, Israelis too formed a group against the death penalty called L'chaim, and L'chaim means life in Hebrew. On the other side, proponents of this bill to bring about the death penalty state that they are through with this peacenik kibbutznik efforts. After October 2023, many Israelis looked to stronger anti-terrorist measures, and capital punishment was one of them. So, when can we expect the first executions? Well, the death penalty won't be applied retroactively or to alleged perpetrators of the October 7th terrorist attacks, which surprised me. But that's what we have. Now, opponents of the death penalty will throw everything they have to derail these executions. Under the plan, Israeli prison service will carry out the death sentences within 90 days of the sentences. The prime minister could delay it to up to 180 days. The condemned will hang. Why no lethal cocktails? These Israelis just didn't want it. Okay, well, here are some of my thoughts. People who oppose the death penalty, period, oppose this bill. They may have a point. If you're going to declare that we are too good of a people to kill other people, all right, you can argue that. We have that a lot in the United States too. As far as the bill being racist, I am less convinced that that's a strong argument. Why? Because is it written anywhere in the bill that Jews are exempt? To my mind, no, I don't think it is. Certainly, most of the terrorists are Muslim, but there are also hard left terrorists who have been convicted. We talked about the green-red alliance of Muslims and hardcore leftists. If the hangman pulls the door on a disproportionate number of Palestinians and a few leftists, it's because the number of the terrorists, particularly the terrorists who kill, are Palestinian. It makes sense to me that most Palestinians would do most of the air dancing because most of the Palestinians do the killing. Right. But that's just my opinion. And I really would like to hear yours. Now, there is one other issue, and this is very unconventional. But, as we get these stories that come in, we like to pass them to you. The Palestinian Authority is expanding our awareness of Israeli tactics in Gaza. In Cauldron of Terror, we examine many of the Israeli battle tactics. We thought we were thorough and that our analysis was rigorous, but we overlooked a four-legged mobile weapon designed to attack children and the infirm. We thank our stars that the Palestinian Authority brought this to the world's attention. Now, these are Israeli super rats. They are giant rats engineered in Mossad-affiliated laboratories to, through advanced genetic mutation, create a Zionist mighty mouse. This comes right out of the Palestinian Broadcasting Corporation. These rodents are genetically engineered. Clearly, they were deliberately introduced into the Gaza Strip so that they would attack the tents of the uprooted people and attack the weak. These rodents, yeah, if you can tell, they're the size of a cat. These rodents are large and attack the weak, meaning the children and elderly, particularly diabetics. A woman who did not feel that a large rat ate the toes of her feet, and she did not feel it, but only felt some wetness, and was shocked to discover she lost part of her leg. Now, I'm almost sure that this is part of the occupation, Israel, war against the Gaza Strips. This comes from Fatah-run radio Matini on Facebook, April 28th, 2026. Thank you very much, Radio Matini. Rest assured, we will share this with our diabetic listeners planning to go camping in Gaza. Be sure to keep your shoes on when you sleep there. Okay, so we at Kensington Consulting have started our first contest. This is the best graphic for an Israeli super rat. Now, if you have a verified picture of these things, you are assuring for first prize. But I think it's a hoax. This is why I invite you to use your imagination and AI skills. Remember, they're the size of cats, muscular, stealthy, and mean. And oh, yes, they are very intelligent. They go only after Palestinians. Nasty things. All right. The winner of the contest will get a signed free copy of Cauldron of Terror when it comes out. This concludes our third video cast, and we welcome your comments. Nothing in this or any video cast we produce represents the official position of the United States government. We welcome your comments, especially those about rats. Until our next episode, goodbye, and thank you for listening from Kensington Security Consulting.